Welcome to the CBIA BizCast. I'm your host, Ali Warshavsky, and today on our podcast, we are speaking with Mike LaBella, Market President of TD Bank Group. Mike will be kicking off our 2021 Manufacturing Summit on October 29th at the Marriott in Trumbull, and you joined us virtually last year, Mike, but we're happy to have you in person this year.
Oh, thanks, Ali. We're delighted to be a presenting sponsor once again of the Manufacturing Summit. And I'm so looking forward to being with everyone in person this year. It's been way too long.
It has been. And over the past year and a half of this pandemic, you've been working with a lot of Connecticut manufacturers, specifically in securing PPP loans. What has that been like?
Oh, I tell you, I have to say though, it's both frantic and extremely fulfilling. Thinking back when COVID started, during the peak, none of us really knew the extent, the duration, the impact on our businesses, or if the PPP money would run out, how the process would work, the constant changing of the rules. But in the end, it was so gratifying to hear the relief expressed by business owners and CFOs that they were able to continue operations and keep their employees on the payroll. I can also, say how proud I am of our team. These folks literally work 24/7 through the holidays and getting loans processed and funded.
You know how many TD Bank processed?
Yeah, we actually, in our footprint, in our Maine to Florida footprint, we processed 133,000 loans for $12.5 billion. In Connecticut, it was well over 6,000 loans for almost $540 million.
Wow, so a lot of work being done over the past year and a half. What were some of the challenges you encountered processing PPP loans? And did you have initial consultations with companies and see some missing components or some common errors throughout the process?
Yeah, the first challenge was really how we were going to process, the number of loans we expected. We decided right away that a paper process just wasn't going to work. So we made the decision to take applications. We actually waited a day. And over the weekend, we built a platform to take applications online and fund directly into companies' checking accounts. That proved to be an incredible time saver and allowed us to process the numbers we did. And all along the way, we stayed in touch with companies because, they were confused at times. And quite frankly, we had to check the rules that were constantly changing. So it was a constant and continual communication, which was the key to getting people comfortable and getting them through the process.
Yeah, because something that they've never really had to do before in this type of way, right? With a pandemic looming.
Exactly.
What kind of projects did you see manufacturers using the PPP loans for? Were they using it mostly for capital or mostly to keep people employed? I know there is some type of rule there where a portion of it does have to go to keeping people employed, correct?
Yes, exactly. There was a percentage early on. Again, the rules changed. Most of it was supposed to be for directly for payroll, but then it was changed to allow for operating expenses, rent, lease payments. But but companies did the right thing. As I said earlier, no one knew the severity or how long this would go on. So companies did the right thing in accessing the capital to keep their plants running and people employed. And you know what? Many of the manufacturers held up well during that time. We know the more difficult industries were hospitality and entertainment. And, we helped there also with not only PPP loans, but with payment deferrals. So it was a very difficult time.
And for these manufacturers, a lot of them still had to go in, though. They couldn't, they weren't put on pause. Some of the things they were making were so essential to daily life. They were in there throughout the worst of it. Have you seen applications for loans for clean and green technology updates and upgrades? Has that been a priority?
We have. We see many companies using us or the Connecticut Green Bank to utilize solar panels, upgrading their fixtures on their factories to reduce energy costs. We also continue to see companies increasing their IT spending and upgrading their financial systems. This is providing cost savings as well as reducing fraud and cyber attacks.
Which is something that they have to deal with nowadays, especially that I feel like the pandemic pushed even more online. fraud and those cyber attacks, what are you seeing with manufacturers and what they're dealing with now?
It's interesting. We thought we were coming out of the woods on COVID, but manufacturers really, we're not out of the woods yet. We face an expanding number of issues that the pandemic has caused, and that's really the effect on their supply chain. The increasing cyber fraud, we have trade conflicts with China, changing oil and commodity prices, interest rate risks, and political conflicts. So we're really dealing with the manufacturers to alleviate the risks we can. I mean, obviously, no one can control political risk or things like that. But we're really hearing from our international trade experts, some of which will be at the conference and have some videos that we'll share, and our treasury management specialists for ways to reduce some of these risks. Manufacturers, we believe, and they have in the past increasing their collaboration with other manufacturers to really try and ease the supply chain issues. We're seeing some of the major companies. There was an article in the journal not too long ago about some of the major big box companies that are actually chartering ships together to bypass some of the ocean shipping bottlenecks. So, there's some things, we don't think many of our, level of manufacturers have that capacity, but maybe there's other ways to really look at issues and collaborate to ease some of those issues.
We talked a lot about larger manufacturers being able to rely on each other, partner with each other to get their own supplies, but smaller manufacturers are still facing those supply chain issues. And of course, the threat of cyber attacks, like you mentioned. So where do manufacturers go from here in this post-pandemic or recovering from the pandemic world and going into 2022?
Great question, Ali. I think it's really important that some of the lessons we learned from COVID, especially on the technology side, that companies continue to utilize the technology that's there. A lot of what we did during COVID, especially with the staff, was working from home. That caused a lot of issues with both security and how do you really manage your payables, your receivables, do wires. That's it's a high security function, and those are the type of products that we really looked at and asked companies to utilize more for their protection, for our protection. So I think the technology piece is going to be very important to continue with for companies, especially in this area of cybersecurity. And on the direct shipment side, where companies are really struggling to get product in, as you mentioned, a lot of the bigger companies are using very collaborative processes that will help them to share shipments and literally take a cargo ship for themselves, or whether they use cargo planes, air freight. Small companies don't have that ability just because it's cost prohibitive. So really, it's really using that collaborative way of working with other manufacturers to try and come up with ways to share shipping costs, try and have full containers if they can, because that's going to lower their costs and also put them on a higher level, if you will, with a lot of the shipping companies, because they're always going to cater to the big full containers. But if smaller companies can collaborate and find ways to share shipping, that may help them in getting their product in quicker.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for that insight into what manufacturers have been facing and what's ahead of them. We look forward to seeing you at our Manufacturing Summit on October 29th at the Trumbull Marriott. And if you want to register, you can do so still on our website, CBIA.com. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the BizCast.
Oh, my pleasure. Look forward to the 29th.